Hey everyone, Yang Yan Zhao. It is another Tuesday night. It is 2024, and it's time we take a little step back into the past. Tonight, I have Mark Poulton, comic writer extraordinaire, author of many titles, which we'll talk about in a bit, but also G.I. Joe lover.
Thanks for
How's
having
it
me
going,
on.
Mark?
It's going great. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk some GI Joe.
Yeah, G.I. Joe is one of those things that it really makes me feel like an old man because I go on some of these streams and even just millennials who are only like 5 years younger than I am, they never really got the G.I. Joe thing. Uh, what is it about G.I. Joe that makes it like so memorable for that certain section of Gen Xers?
Man, I don't. It's like the perfect storm of an IP. Like it was a toy line, but it had the cartoon to sell the toy line. And then if you wanted to even take a deeper dive into it, they had this comic book series that was like, forget all this, lighthearted cartoon stuff. Here's like serious adventures about them. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is like full of so much depth and continuity and character building. I don't know. It's the book that made me want to make comic books. Um, I've just once I discovered GI Joe, I feel like my life took a turn. Like, and I found my calling.
For sure. What was your entry issue into G.I. Joe,
Oh,
if you remember?
so when I remember I was watching the cartoon and they ran a commercial showing off like the latest toy and like they had these kids doing a scene and then it like tied into the cartoon that was playing throughout the commercial and then it said for more adventures check out GI Joe whatever and my first issue was issue I want to say it was 34 where it had Ace and Wild Weasel having a dogfight in the air. I might be off on the numbers, but I remember
Oh,
that was the issue. And I was like, I went to my mom. I was like, I need this comic book. I had no idea it existed. And she took me to the mall and they had a Walden's bookstore and they had a spinner rack with comics. And there was that issue. And I bought it. And I remember cutting out the little subscription box. Like people like kids people that not born in our time, they were like, what, you could get like you could cut out and order a subscription to the comics and they would be mailed to your house. So I got like a couple years worth of subscriptions until like comic shops started being more prevalent in my area. But when I found a comic shop, then I started digging up all the back issues and stuff. um uh, and like there's also like reprint packs that were
mhm.
were sold in like I don't know, like department stores and toy stores like Kmart. So I got like a reprint copy once I started reading it. So that's how I got like the earlier issues, like you know 2 and 13 and 14. I remember getting them in like a 3 pack.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I started too. I remember we were going to my grandma's. It was a 3-hour drive. We stopped at a gas station, and my dad bought me an issue of GI Joe to shut me up for the rest of the trip. And it worked. It was great. And I did the same thing with the mail-in. I ended
Yeah.
up getting. I was allowed to get 2 a year. I got GI Joe and Transformers.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and the thing is, it is kind of strange to me that people have forgotten. Like people want to talk about, with crowdfunding, creator going directly to the customer. Skipping over the direct market. But it's like we had that before, and not only did we have it, it was really popular.
Yeah. And your book would just come. It would be wrapped in a brown, like a brown slip of paper,
Yep.
like a sleeve, with a little address sticker on it. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was great. And I even remember there were one or two of the GI Joe ones. They had like printed dog tags on them. on that
Oh.
brown sleeve.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do, vaguely recall that.
Uh, so it, I've always wondered, do you think that GI Joe just happened to come at the perfect time, or because they had that 12-inch doll
Yeah,
sometime in the 70s, which did not do well during the Vietnam War,
right.
and then it died. GI Joe really died by the 90s. So what is it you think about the 80s that like just it was just perfect?
It's like that perfect Reagan era cartoon, property, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know, like, we had, like, the Cold War with Russia, um, yeah, the Star Wars defense, and GI Joe sorta encapsulated all of this, like, this secret government agent, like, it would exist during during that time.
yeah, yeah.
We had movies like, American Ninja and action heroes like Chuck Norris and Schwarzenegger, like Stallone, like, and, like, those type of action heroes don't even, exist today, really. So, I don't know, like, '80s was just, like, the perfect, I don't know, it was a great time to grow up, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And for me, it was great because I think part of it was the kids who were of the right age to like GI Joe were born like right after Vietnam, so didn't really have any experience of like horrible war things.
Yeah.
And then also, I don't know if you remember, but planes were getting hijacked every couple of months at that time.
Yeah.
So Cobra being a terrorist organization sort of rang true. Kids would be familiar with it because they were cutting into cartoons all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I remember, like, so many times, coming home from school and then the news would break. Yeah, the '80s was a great time to grow up.
Definitely.
I Yeah.
So, with GI Joe, they started off relatively the toy line, anyways, started off relatively realistic, and then they sort of got almost they went off the rails like as time went on.
Yeah.
What period of GI Joe was like sort of your favorite?
Oh, so, we talked about this briefly off air that I recently picked up The Art of G.I. Joe hardcover. It's an incredible book, 700 pages, and it goes through the creation of the toy line. And I think around the 85, 86 line, they were introducing more of the colorful characters, but
Hmm.
it didn't like go completely off the rails with like, you know, they had the space Joes, and they had the
Yeah.
ninja force. But like when they were introducing guys like Shipwreck, Chuckles, um, even before that, like Spirit, Snake Eyes got
Hmm.
the upgrade to the cooler costume with Timber, the wolf. I feel like that mid '80s was like the best.
Yeah, it did sort of seem to be like a sweet spot.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the comics. How long did you hold on reading the comics?
I read it to the very end, of the
Really?
Marvel
Wow.
run,
Yeah, yeah,
and
the Marvel.
I never stopped. I followed it through to Dark Horse when they were doing GI Joe Extreme, and I just was like, "Why are they doing this? Where's Snake Eyes?" And they kind of hinted that Snake Eyes there was some mystery character, but they never delivered. And then
Uh,
Devil's Due, uh, back in the early 2000s, brought it back through Image, and I thought that was a fantastic series. Like, you could tell they were fans, bringing this back to the prestige that they held it in, and I thought that Devil's Due run was, highly underrated, and then IDW got the license from Devil's Due, and I wasn't crazy about it. I'm glad they continued it with Larry Hama, so that continuity kept going, but I didn't like that they uh, basically disavowed the Devil's Due run. They even
yeah.
reprinted the Devil's Due run and called it disavowed. But I haven't checked out the Robert Kirkman picked up the license. I haven't
Oh,
checked
did
that
he?
out yet. Yeah. Yeah, he acquired GI Joe and Transformers, um,
Oh,
and supposedly they're pretty good. I'll have to check them out though. But I know they have like 2 or 3 issues out of GI Joe already.
Yeah, I heard the first one was actually decent. I haven't had a chance to check it
Yeah.
out, but it'd be interesting to see. Do you think, Transformers through like the last 10 years has kind of gone through a major revival? You had the Michael Bay movies, you've had various new cartoon series that have done really well. Even the underappreciated Transformers, the movie, is now
Yeah.
considered a classic. Um, do you ever see G.I. Joe making a real comeback?
I hope so. I think they could. I know they teased GI Joe in the last Transformers movie, and I mean everyone wants to do like their own uh, universe of like
Hmm.
heroes and stuff. So maybe if they could be incorporated into the Transformers, but I kind of really see that we're already having a bit of a renaissance, a reemergence of the GI Joe line with Skybound taking over the comics. I think that's an improvement over IDW. The
Yeah.
classified figures are doing fantastic, and then Super Seven has the reaction figures, and
Hmm.
they've done so well that they're bringing back reactions. Or Super Seven's bringing back the O-ring figure 3 3/4 inch
Oh,
figure.
really?
So yeah, we're gonna get a surplus of GI Joe toys coming
Hmm.
up.
But do you think that's mostly aimed at old fogies like
Nostalgia,
us,
yes,
or or do you see any like kids picking up on it too? At least with Transformers, there were kids who enjoy going to see the movies and watching the new
yeah.
cartoons.
Well, transforming robots, I think, will always be cool
Yeah,
to people. I don't know if soldiers will always be cool to
that's true.
to kids. Maybe not the time right now for you know soldiers and and war stories, but for the
Yeah,
people
I
that
mean,
grew up on it, that we can't get enough of it.
fantastic. That was
Yeah.
like the best army recruitment ad they ever could have had. I was really surprised that it didn't get more popular in the 2000s, especially after 9/11, when global terrorism became the big thing. It's like, well, here you go. You got all these guys fighting terrorism. You could have all sorts of adventures with them.
Yeah, no,
But
that's a good point. I guess we had the GI Joe films in the with Channing Tatum, and
mhm,
then The Rock, but
The Rock, yeah.
yeah, I think they just I don't know, they missed they didn't quite capture the greatness of GI Joe.
Yeah, I mean, to me, part of the problem is like sort of the same thing that when the toy line went down. It's like there was like too much technical stuff. Like it almost seemed like magic.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like if you would have kept it just with guys and guns and having to be smart and infiltrating things, and they did do some of that. And I didn't hate those movies, except for the Snake Eyes movie. But I didn't hate the other movies. But they just sort of fell flat.
yeah. Maybe if they went in a direction, well, I mean, this would be catering to their audience. If you did an Expendables type movie,
Yeah,
which was just a celebration of 80s action films, like if we got a GI
yeah, yeah,
Joe
yeah.
movie in the 80s, I'm sure it would have been made by Canon Films and been incredible.
Yes. I don't know why they don't make one set in the 80s.
Yeah. Oh,
Make it against us fighting the Soviet Union. That would be fantastic.
if they did though, they would probably make it a comedy because that's what they tend to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I blame James Gunn.
Yeah.
Uh, so, in your book, USA Assassin or
Yeah.
US Assassin, uh, so how much did your love for G.I. Joe play in making this book?
So originally, it was my love of American Ninja, the Michael
Oh,
Dudikoff action film
yes.
series. Um, I had uh, uh, a UK company, put out a Blu-ray box set of American Ninja, and I had to get it. And I started rewatching those movies and remembering how much I loved them. And I was like, I wonder what the American Ninja would be doing today if he was still working for the government. And
Oh,
that's how I came up with U.S. Assassin. It's sort of like my Dark Knight meets American Ninja of his last mission. But as I was making this book with artist Mike McMahon, we were having so much fun doing it. It was originally just supposed to be one and done. But as we were wrapping it up, Mike suggested we add 2 more pages to the book. And I was like, oh, we really need to get this to the printer, Mike. And he was like, hear me out. In the last 2 pages, we introduce a new villain, and he's sort of the storm shadow to U.S. Assassin Snake Eyes. And like my brain exploded, and I was like, "Oh my god, we can go in a whole different direction with this book." And no lie, I think I sent Mike the completed script for Volume 2 in a week, where we introduce all these characters. We go into U.S. Assassin's past, where he was trained by Sensei Steel. He had a partner who, dropped out of the U.S. Assassin program. That would be the villain Zero Face. We introduced mercenaries like Slither, and we just had so much fun with Volume 2 as we started introducing these characters who would eventually become the team. And at the end of Volume 2, Sensei Steel shows up from the past, and he was like, "We need all of you, even Zero Face and Slither, who are villains." And it was like the world's facing their greatest threat, and they had to team up to stop Graveyard Shift, which was my other book, which was doing gangbusters at the time. So it was like, I don't know. That Volume 2 it may be my favorite of the U.S. Assassin series, because it just how it Mike's idea from Volume 1 created this whole new direction for the book. It just was so much fun to create.
so when you're writing a book like this, like something like American Ninja, part of the brilliance of that movie was the low budget and a little bit of schlock.
Hmm.
But then there was a ton of action in it too. So how do you strike that right balance between like campy comedy stuff and action?
So U.S. Assassin books are built on action, but then we have sort of things that do like hit the touch on the camp. Like a U.S. Assassin has a sidekick, Bazooka Dog, and his origin of how I created him. I was playing Legos with my son, and there was a German Shepherd Lego piece, and there was a
Mhm.
bazooka Lego piece. And I said, "Hey Chase, look at this." And I put the bazooka on the German Shepherd, and I said, "Bazooka Dog." He thought it was hilarious, and I was like, "Oh, I think we have something here." and and then my son Slither. So Slither, another one of the most popular characters in the book. My son just drew this monster for me to hang in my office, and it was this snake man with 3 tongues. So I hung him in my office. I took a picture of him, and Mike saw him and said, "Hey, he should be part of the book." And I was like, okay. So I just made him one of the villains, and everyone loved him, and they loved the idea that my son created this, badass character that has, a snake man with 3 snakes for a tongue. It's pretty cool. Like I wouldn't have thought of that, but at the time, my 6 or 7 year old son, said, of course, a snake man would have 3 snakes for his tongue. So there's incredible action, um, but also like some characters you might not see in a more serious book.
Yeah, kids always come up with the best stuff when they don't have any filter.
Yeah.
So Doja Kun says, "I love how Mark is incorporating an homage to American Ninja, GI Joe, and WWE."
Yeah, so that leads us to like the wrestling aspect of it. So if I was building my GI Joe, the great thing about GI Joe, they had like a real person who was part of the GI Joe team in Sergeant Slaughter, and I was like,
Hmm.
I need my Sergeant Slaughter. So I'm a huge wrestling fan. I was when I was a kid, and I still am today. And I was thinking who would fit that role. So I wanted someone modern. And at the time, there was a really popular YouTube series called Being the Elite, millions of subscribers. And there was a character on there, Flip Gordon, who he was in the army for real. And he changed his character. He went from this clean cut good guy to becoming a villain, and he took on this persona, the mercenary. And I was like, oh, he looks really badass when he wears this gas mask and vest with spikes on it. So I reached out to him through Facebook. I took a shot, messaging, hit him up on Messenger on Facebook, thinking I'll probably never hear back from him. And as I sent him the message, and like less than an hour later, he responded back and he goes, "That sounds exactly what something I would want to do." So we worked out a license, um, and he's been incredible to have a part of the team. We launched Volume 3 with him, a member of the team, and maybe one of the coolest nights of my comic career. And I've gotten to do some cool stuff. I worked with my hero Rob Liefeld. I got to work at DC
Oh,
Comics, and but we launched USAssassin 3, and Flip Gordon happened to be wrestling for the Ring of Honor World Title in Philadelphia that night, and he invited me and Mike McMahon to go to the pay-per-view as his guests. So we were in the crowd with our U.S. Assassin and Mercenary signs. And after the pay-per-view, he saw us in the crowd, hopped the railing, and walked right into the crowd to start
oh,
talking.
awesome.
So we have the wrestling tie-in, and we've kept it going with Volume 4. I said I loved wrestling all the way back to when I was a child. My all-time favorite wrestler is Roddy Piper. And I was put in touch with his family, and I asked if I could use Roddy in an upcoming issue of U.S. Assassin, and they asked my idea. I told him he would be the guest instructor training their new recruits, and when things go down, he decides to join them on their mission, and they loved the idea. So I can't believe I'm making a comic book with my childhood hero in it. So Roddy Piper joins the team with Volume 4. So it's
That's
been
amazing.
incredible.
Does he chew bubblegum?
Oh, believe me, there's a scene in there.
So what, speaking of GI Joe, and we talked a little bit about the comics, but you had mentioned how much fun like those comics were, and they got kind of serious. What do you think it is about wrestling, WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it? What is it about those stories that kind of hit that sweet spot that keep people tuning in forever?
Yeah, I think it's the closest thing to like a male superhero, and also like the closest thing to real life superheroes. Well, a male soap opera and real life superheroes. Like when wrestling's done. What's up, Mike? Mike's the artist and co-creator of U.S. Assassin. Um, I don't know, when wrestling's done right, it's so good. Like a storyline that will suck you in, and I know everyone at home who's a wrestling fan, they all have like the way they feel a storyline should play out. And when it happens that way, I think you're so happy that they like nailed it. And then when they surprise you and go a different direction, then I think you're even more excited because you got they got you. They sucked you in and said, "Oh, we're going this way," and then they zagged a different way, and you're surprised. It's just, I don't know, good versus evil. It's uh I don't know. It's just it's just like good comic books. It's you want to watch the good guys win.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know. There's something that seems almost intrinsic to wrestling, though, where it's like your brain shuts off the part where it'll say, like, oh, come on. Like, sure, men jumping 30 feet off a cage into barbed wire. Why not? You know, wearing all sorts of like crazy costumes and like plots that are even crazier than soap operas. You know,
Yeah.
people in comas for 2 years or whatever. It's fantastic. And for some reason, when you're watching it, the brain isn't like, that's a little too much. Like it's never too much.
Yeah, so when I was working with Rob Liefeld, we were doing Hawkman together at DC, and Rob's probably faced the most number of critics as anyone, and he said, "Mark, we make books for those people that still have that sense of wonder," and that's always stuck with me, and I think that's what that's the type of entertainment I like. I like the stuff that I can turn my brain off a bit and just sit back and enjoy it. And I think that's what U.S. Assassin is. It's one of those books that I mean, there's good character development, there's tons of action, but just turn your brain off and enjoy it.
How was it working with Rob?
uh, I think I've learned it's the probably the best learning experience I've ever had. I think um, I think he's an underrated writer. His ideas are second to none. Like just his character creation. We did Hawkman for a little while, but we inherited a book that was like flatlining, and we revived it. And we kept it alive for a while. But we introduced a ton of new characters, and the action was just nonstop. And I really learned how to tell like a good action story from Rob. Plus, he has the best stories. The guy's a storyteller. I used to do a podcast back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, and I had Rob as a guest when we were working together, and I asked the first question, and Rob talked for 2 hours straight, and that's just that's just who Rob is. Like he he like commands attention, and you just hang on every word because what he's saying is so interesting, and he's got experiences that no one else really has. I mean, he was there when Image was created. He was there when, the Marvel guys, him, Todd, Jim were selling a million
Mhm.
million copies of books. It was a great time. It was I'm like privileged to have him as like my probably my top mentor in comics.
And was he really kind of hands on with the story? Like he really wanted to work with you, or was
So
it more like you give me you give me the words and I'll make the story with the art? Or
yeah, so I've worked with Rob in a bunch of different capacities, and so before I worked with him on Hawkman, he uh, relaunched Evangeline, his character, fallen angel character, and it was probably the most like creatively one of the most rewarding series I've ever worked on. He was so hands off. He just let me run wild, me and the artist Owen Jenny, and we basically did whatever we wanted. And like one of the things I learned from Rob was stories that he would tell. I didn't really run things by him. I just sort of did it because Rob had told me several stories where he says it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I used a ton of guest characters that I didn't know if I was allowed to use, but they were they were in the book. Um, so I got to work with him there, and he was a great boss when it comes to creative freedom. He let me run wild with a property that I really loved. And then when we worked at DC, of course, we're working with editors. We're working for DC, and Rob was in charge of the stories, and then I would write the scripts from them. And um, that was a little tougher because Rob wouldn't really share where the stories were going. So it was kind
Mm.
of up to me to, I don't know, I was just guessing but it made for some really good issues. But I don't know if you remember that time that Rob was at DC. It was during the New 52. He had some issues with our editors. We went through like 4 different editors over a 6
Ooh,
issue run, which
wow.
I guess wasn't uncommon. I know a lot of the uh, established pros were having issues there. I think even like George Perez was very vocal about it. But Rob up and quit Hawkman or quit all his books. He was doing 4 books at DC at one point, and
Mm.
I've kept my day job throughout my comics career. So I had a job at a mortgage company, and I'm leaving
Oh,
the mortgage company, and my phone is just blowing up. I was like, "What's going on?" And I see I have all these Twitter notifications, and like the first tweet I read, it says, "Man, I sure hope Mark has a job after this." And I like
uh-oh.
have to follow this whole like chain of tweets to see what's going on. And I see that Rob quits DC very publicly. And then I see, Dan DiDio say, "I don't know who's working on Hawkman right now. We're still deciding. We haven't decided who the new writers are going to be." And I'm like, "Oh,
Ooh.
great! I just found out I no longer had a job online." And by the time I got home, my editor had emailed me, and he was like, "Hey, I guess you saw what happened. It was nice working with you." So,
Oh, that
um,
sucks.
yeah, I mean, it does suck, but if if that never happened, who knows if you know John and I would have launched Graveyard Shift, and that sort of, launched this whole publishing career where I get to call my own shots and do all the books I've dreamed of and make crazy characters like Slither and Bazooka Dog with my son. So I don't regret any of it. And plus, I got to work, like I said, Rob was my comic book hero. Growing up, I got to work with him. We had an incredible creative team. Joe Bennett was the artist. Art T. Bear was the inker. As a fan
Wow.
of the 90s, I don't think I could have asked for a better creative team to work with. So it was a great time. It was short lived, but we packed a lot into those 6 issues we did.
Hmm. That's amazing to hear. Yeah, I think Rob is for sure the one guy who I'm never going to get on this channel. But so what was it that made you say, like, instead of trying to get another job at DC or going over to Marvel or Image, what is it that made you say, you know what, indie publishing, that's where it's at?
So um, John Malin and I we met on the Rob Liefeld message boards. We were both doing work
Oh,
for Rob here and there. So a Graveyard Shift, I pitched him that idea back in 2010. So it's something we had always been working on, but one of us would get, like, I'd get a job at DC, he would get a job at Marvel. So that we would work on it, but we never had it finished. Uh, to release. At one point, Rob even said he was going to help us set it up at Image, and that didn't happen. So while we were taking breaks on and off of Graveyard Shift, I would still, I would send out other ideas to publishers. I would even show them Graveyard Shift, and I kept getting told the same thing. It's 290s. No one wants to do books like that anymore. We can't sell those types of books. And I'm like, wow, that's really the type of books I want. I feel like there's people like me just out there who aren't getting that. And I don't know, the perfect storm just sort of formed. John was working at Marvel at the time. He was getting very frustrated with editorial. The comic industry was becoming very political, and his editor sent out a tweet saying, if you vote for Trump, don't buy our books, or we're going to remember
hmm.
you, something like that. And it upset John because he wants everyone to buy his books. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what your politics are. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
what it should be. You should just want people to buy your books because you want your book to be successful. And they were also altering his artwork because they were deeming it too some of the female characters too sexy. So he finished up his commitment and told him he was done. And he did a crowdfunding project with a YouTuber by the name of Richard Meyer called Jawbreakers that set the crowdfunding world on fire. I think they raised like $400,000 or $500,000, and was
It's
when John,
crazy.
yeah, when John was done with Jawbreakers, he was like, "Hey, we've been working on Graveyard Shift. We have 2 issues done. Let's package those 2 issues up as a as a graphic novel, and we'll test the waters with crowdfunding." And we set our goal for $5,000. And I remember talking to John before we launched. He said, "Hey, if we don't reach our goal, we'll each put up half the money and just print the book." And I was thinking to myself, where am I coming up with $2,500 to print this?
Yeah.
And I didn't have to worry because we were funded in like 10 minutes. The book went on to crowdfund about $100,000, and people really, really loved, the idea and what they were seeing. And we realized, there's a lot of people who loved like those same 90s books that we were told people didn't want. There was an audience for it. And then when we came back with the second volume, that crowdfunded about $250,000. And then the third one did even better, into the $300,000. So Graveyard Shift was very successful, and it offered me the opportunity to, start doing some other books that I had the ideas for, like USAssassin. USAssassin, the first volume, we gave that away. We gave an 80-page graphic novel away as a stretch goal to Graveyard Shift backers. We told them if our book hit, we picked a number that we didn't think was possible for volume 2 of Graveyard Shift. We said $180,000. If we hit that, everyone can have a free 80-page graphic novel of USAssassin. And sure enough, we hit that.
Nice.
So all the backers got USAssassin 1, and I've used my money to fund some other ideas. My son and I came up with a character called Sea Dog, who is a dog that can turn in. Basically, the idea is he's a dog that can turn into a fish. but there's more to that, where he can turn into any sea creature, and he likes being a dog man more than he likes being an actual dog. So he creates this secret identity where he's Sea Dog when he's Sea Dog the Rapper, spelled CDAWG, and they're the only 2 dog humanoids in the world, but no one can figure out that they're the same person.
How much fun is it and how much inspiration do you take from your son? Because you keep mentioning things that he has ideas
Oh,
for. And
yeah. I love making comics with him. He's at that age right now where he's not as involved. He's a teenager now, but
oh,
working with dad isn't as cool as it was when he was like younger. But every
yeah.
now and then he shows interest. So he's delved more into art now, like drawing
Oh,
digitally
cool.
on his iPad. And I keep telling him, you keep working on it, and you're my artist going forward.
Save a lot of money.
Yeah, keep it all in the family.
Um, so, as someone who works with a bunch of different artists, uh, how how do you find a good balance between sort of making sure that they get what you want out of the story versus like leaving some room for them to also be creative and add to the story themselves? How do you
So that
balance that?
So that's like my favorite part of making comic books. It's the collaboration. I want my artists' ideas. And I want to write stuff that they're excited to draw, because I think that's when you get the best work. Well, one of the things I do is my I guess my writing style's considered Marvel method. It's just the
Mhm.
way I started writing my comics, and then when I worked with Rob, I he would just sometimes give me artwork and say, "Hey, write dialogue, make a story out of this." So uh, I send my artists, I send them panel by panel breakdowns, but I don't write the dialogue. And sometimes things they draw might not be in line with what I had thought, but sometimes it's better, and it creates it gives me an idea where I hadn't thought of the book going, and I just sort of play off that. I don't know. I think it also like I don't have a. I'm very fortunate in that I don't have a problem finding artists to work with. I think because of the freedom I give them, they like working with me. If they have suggestions with the script and they're like, "Hey, this is pretty cool, but could we make this into a double page spread or whatever?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can do this. Just make sure the pages line up." Uh, because we don't want a double page spread that falls on an
Yeah,
even number page, because that'll be terrible.
that's true. So when you're looking for your artists, what do you go for first? Do you first say like I want, like 90s style, or I want
Well, I think
or I want real cartoony, or do you look more for the personality?
I think I'm definitely drawn to that '90s style. When I asked John Malin if he wanted to do Graveyard Shift with me, I thought he would be perfect for the book. He was working for Rob. I wanted that sort of '90s image uh style. I thought he was perfect for, and I mean, those are my favorite type of comics. Those 90 books are, what really inspired me and made me think, a career in comics was possible. And I thought they were the most exciting comic books. You just flip through them, and it really grabs your attention. So that type of artwork, stylized artwork, I'm geared towards. But sometimes it'll play into the story. If I'm doing something that's more adult ages, I'll look for something
Mhm.
a little cartoonier. Because we've done uh, besides doing the superhero stuff, I've done stuff. You know, like a pizza tree, which definitely isn't what what my the rest of my library of work looks like. You just got to find the right
Mhm.
artist for the right book.
Hmm. Um, so some people they write books for a little while and then they get burned out. So how do you keep things fresh for yourself? How do you keep yourself motivated and keep things interesting?
I think the fact that I have so many titles to work on, I'm always jumping from script to script, so I'm never 100% working on just one thing. So right now I'm working on USAssassin, but I'm also prepping this new book, universe. Well, it's not really new. It's actually an old property that John Malin and I did back in the 2000s, that I acquired the rights to from a publisher that never released it. So I'm getting that ready, and working on that. So I bounce around from project to project to keep things fresh. Plus, I have all the responsibilities of a publisher with the fulfillment. So yeah, I just bounce around from different things, so I don't get like, I don't know, in a rut, I would say.
Hmm. So what's your since you're doing your own thing, and being an independent publisher means you're not just a writer or a penciler. You got to do marketing. You got to be in, even if you're not doing it yourself, you got to be in charge of the fulfillment. Um, you got to make sure that the Indiegogo or the Fund My Comic is set up correctly. Uh, with all that extra work, what is your ideal on like how many stories you think you could realistically put out in a year?
So I got really ambitious one year, and I did six. I think I did six campaigns, and we talk about burnout. Yeah, I think I hit that. I think I hit that moment of burnout. I think like perfect is about three stories a year. Um, you really have to, um, I don't know, give each project some time to breathe. And doing like six projects a year, I almost felt like uh, my latest book I released was cannibalizing the one I had just released, because there's
Hmm.
a like you crowdfund for 2 months, but then your campaign goes into manned because people are still excited about it. You can still promote it. There's still plenty of promotion to do. So I think I was cannibalizing of my properties back then. This year I have USAssassin, and then I have the Universals. After that I'm publishing. John and I are going to publish another Graveyard Shift through his company Secret Door. So I think like that's perfect. Three where I do one and John does the other. I think that's the ideal schedule for me right now.
Nice. Um, and do you ever foresee maybe a time when you start? I mean, technically, you have your own publishing company, but do you see yourself ever employing a bunch of people to take care of some of these things, or do you like the way things are size wise?
Um, I I I, I like things the way they are. I wouldn't mind
Hmm.
my son taking a more active approach as he gets older, and I think he will. He does show interest, but yeah, I would love for this company to be a family business where my son and I do it together and fulfill, and it's just a family business.
So speaking of your son, you got hopefully, get the next generation more interested and active uh, in the industry in general. Um, Things are not looking so great for the big two, at least.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you, or do you think we're ever going to see more young people getting interest in typical American style comic books again, or do you think they're just sort of going to go the way of the dodo and everything will be like webtoons and manga, or where do you see that going?
Well, my son, he's all about manga. That's what he wants to read. We'll go to a comic shop or a Barnes and Noble, and he heads straight for the manga section. And now he's got me, reading some mangas as well. I don't know. There's a lot more energy in today's manga than there are in today's mainstream comics, and I think the mainstream publishers, uh, it would benefit them if they sort of brought some of that energy over. But I don't know if that's what they want to do. I don't know what their uh,
Mm,
their goal is
doesn't
right
seem
now
like it.
at the mainstream companies right now. I
Uh,
don't really think it's
Keep their
selling.
jobs.
Yeah,
That's
it's selling comics. Yeah, I don't think that's their goal right now.
Do you think that there will ever be, I don't know how to say, like, when we were growing up, there was the big two,
Yeah.
right? Marvel and DC. Now there's kind of the big three. I personally include Image on like the same scale as
Right.
Marvel and DC. Do you ever see a bunch of other smaller publishers coming up, and not necessarily like Boom and Dynamite and those guys, but like people who come from like a true indies background like this, and they say, okay, maybe two, you have a property, I have a property, we'll get together to make like a new company, and then sort of like starting to build more.
So I
um
so I feel like crowdfunding, direct to consumer is the future, and if
mhm.
a couple powerful, whether they be YouTubers or mainstream, superstar writer artists got together, maybe a mainstream creator with a popular YouTuber, if they got together, I think they could create something pretty big. I mean, we've seen some YouTubers with $1 million
Hmm.
campaigns. So I think that's the way things are going to go in the future. I think you're going to see more and more people coming to crowdfunding. You're seeing it now more. People have taken notice to Graveyard Shift and the other books like Cyberfrog and um, what Shane Davis is doing
Yep.
and others. So I think more and more guys who are a little tired with the mainstream are going to come over here, dip their toe in crowdfunding, and see, oh, things are pretty good over here.
All right. And how do you think we get to um, people who aren't necessarily interested in comics? Because like when we were kids, we mentioned spinner racks. They
Hmm.
were everywhere, every grocery store, convenience store, gas station, bookstore. They all had comics like right by the register where you couldn't happen uh, but notice them. And now, especially if you're the indies, it's rough. Like even the GI Joe stuff, they had the cartoon for the toys,
Yeah.
but then they would advertise the comic as well. So people who weren't necessarily into comics um, would like run across them and then be like, oh, hey, this is kind of cool. That's to me, it's the one big negative of indie comics is it's sort of like the direct market where nobody's going to go to a comic book store unless you already want to buy comics.
Yeah.
So like you need some way to get new people into the hobby. Do you have any thoughts of like how that might work in the future?
Man, I really thought with like the rise of the Marvel movies years back, um, if they had done like a comic, like oh, you like Avengers or Captain America Winter Soldier, check out
Hmm.
this comic book, just like the GI Joe comic
Yeah.
commercials would do for me. But it never really happened. They created Free Comic Book Day almost around the release of these Marvel movies to get people in the comic book shops. But once they got their free comic, there was really no incentive for them to return. So I don't really know what that would be to bring back the bring in new fans. I will say this, you are seeing like YouTubers creating comic books as their YouTube merch. And that's almost
Hmm.
like seeing something on the spinner rack, but you're seeing it online. Someone who has never been a comic book fan, oh, this YouTuber they like now has a book. Oh, I'll check it out because I like them and I want to support them. Um, so if you can make a good book that hooks them and brings them back, maybe they'll check out more comic books if I don't know. You would then have to expect that YouTuber to say, "Hey, you like my book? Check out these."
Yeah.
Unless that creator, unless that person who buys it says, "Oh, I like this. What else is there out there?" Um, so I don't know. It's a very tough question, and if I think the industry knew how to bring in more readers, if it was an
And
easy answer, we would be experiencing a resurgence in the mainstream.
yeah, all those Marvel and DC movies disappointed me so much with that.
Yeah.
I lived in Japan for 2.5 years, and when you go to the movies over there, they all have like a little shop where they'll sell like playbills for the movie, so
Oh
you can
wow.
see like what actor did what, and
Yeah.
they'll sell merch. So what I want to know is, with all the power that Disney had, especially when those movies were making billions of dollars, why couldn't they tell like Regal and AMC like, hey, we're going to put a few spinner racks on the doors on the way out. So after people come out of the movie, we're going to publish like an adaptation of the movie in comic form. They used to do that in the 80s all the time. There's
Yeah.
Indiana Jones, Star Wars. So you have that. And then also, you sell like trade paperbacks of whatever the original source material was. So like Winter Soldier. So you have like a floppy just for the movie, or maybe even got three floppies for the movie. And then you have a trade paperback of the original Winter Soldier storyline. Same thing with Civil War, all this stuff.
Yeah, as a kid, I would have loved that. I know when Batman came out, all the Batman merchandise and the
Yeah.
Batman movie comic, I was all about it. I mean, nowadays you go to a theater for a big superhero release, they're selling the collectible popcorn tin that they want you to buy. Put some
Yeah.
books there as well.
Yeah. Well, and the crazy thing is, I remember they used to have like these big cardboard, like I wouldn't even call them like a standee. Like they were just like dioramic scenes where
Mhm.
you go stand next to Thanos and try to grab his glove or something. Like what you can get those in theaters, but you can't get a few comic books.
Yeah.
To me, it was crazy. Like the biggest missed opportunity. And even DC, their movies didn't do quite as well, but they did well enough. Who wouldn't want to buy some Superman comics? Who wouldn't want to
Yeah.
buy Batman comics?
Yeah. No.
So
No.
craziness.
I would have loved that.
All right. So currently, USA Assassins 4 is on Fund My Comic. Is it only on Fund My Comic or
For now, it's only on Fund My
no?
Comic.
Okay. Uh, and how long do you plan on keeping it active?
So the plan is to fulfill in October. So I think I'm going to keep the campaign up until we order the books. So uh probably like late August, early September is when we're going to take this campaign page down. So there's plenty of time to order the books if your funds aren't where you need them to be right now.
All right. And do you have any special levels, special editions that you want to point out?
Yeah, so right now, with this campaign, besides Volume 4, if you're new to US Assassin, uh,
Hmm.
we created a new book called War Stories, and that's volumes 1 through 3 in a digest size or manga size,
Oh,
if you will. So that's 180 pages, all three volumes. You can get that and Volume 4 for $50. It's
wow.
but if you want to save money, use the coupon code 10 off, one word TENOFF. You can get 240 pages of US Assassin for $40. Um, and you can use that code for any tier $50 and up. Um, I want to bring in some new readers for this. I think that new 180 page collection will help in that. It's a fun book. It'll bring you back to those days of wonder. The team is in search of their beloved team member Bazooka Dog. They enlist the help of Rowdy Roddy Piper, the legendary pro wrestler and star of They Live. He joins them on this adventure where they go to the planet that is the home world of their member Slither. So you get to see Slither's origins as well. Some other characters from my comic book universe, Sea Dog and Viking Wolf, appear as well. It's a lot of fun. It's probably, I don't know. U.S. Assassin is one of the most fun comic books you will find. It doesn't take itself too seriously. Tons of action. Great art by Mike McMahon. Um, I can't say enough good things about it. I just love making this book.
Hmm. And excuse me. And in addition to this, uh, we just had the Graveyard Shift 5.
The
What
sign
you
up
call it? The
page.
sign up sheet, the sign
Yeah.
up page come out.
Yeah, sign up for this and you will get access to an exclusive tier that comes with a foil trading card. Um, US Assassin Volume 5. Really excited for it. People just got their Omega Storm books, and that was the biggest Graveyard Shift adventure yet. 158 pages in total. People,
Dang.
you know, have been, tweeting all about it, and how excited they were to read it, and now we're ready to launch the next volume. Artwork is already 50% done on it, so we're moving along at a great pace for Graveyard Shift 5. Um, so I'm excited for Graveyard Shift as well. It's going to be a good year.
Awesome. And what else can we expect from you? What else do you have in the works?
So I'm actually toying, pun intended, with the idea of USAssassin action figures. We've had some 3D models sculpted for it, prototypes printed. Um, I'm I really want to do it. It is a pricey endeavor, so I really have to think about making that leap if I want to do it. That's one of the things with crowdfunding, though. I guess I could crowdfund it first. I just sort of wanted to go all in and put the money up there and just have the toys in hand. But we'll see. I'm still debating that internally. The more I guess uh, conservative portion of me is saying, just test the waters and crowdfund it. Don't don't put the money up front. But man, these prototypes look really awesome. We did USAssassin, Bazooka Dog, and the mercenary sidekick Raider, and they look fantastic. So well, we'll see. But that's like my big dream. I would love to do action figures one day, because to bring it full circle, GI Joe is the property that got me into comic books.
If you do ever decide to get them, are we going to see 80s style commercials for the toys? Like kids playing in the backyard, like a dirt pile in the backyard?
That would be perfect. If I could recreate the commercials that got me interested in comics, then yeah, I would love to do that. A little animation mixed with some toys and comics. That would be perfect.
It'd be awesome. One thing, I didn't quite realize how large of books you're putting out these days. Do you see, like in the indie market, that people are wanting larger books, thicker books, or is it just something you want to put out?
Well, so it started with what I want to do. I like books that have perfect bounds, have a spine, put them on a bookshelf. I'm sort of over single issues and reading my stories in that format. But I think that's what the buyers want. I think they expect with crowdfunding they're going to pay more than what you pay at a comic shop to get
Mhm.
a story, but they want a little more for it. So I try to do books page count 64 pages and up. Uh, Omega Storm was 158 pages. That's probably a little too big. I'm doing war stories at 180, but that's reprint material, so
Mhm.
the money was already spent there to make the book in previous campaigns. So that's just reprinting. But I feel like 64 pages is a good uh, page count for the price point we're asking.
All right. Uh, and maybe one last question. If you had some advice for people who want to get into writing comics, what would be your advice?
Honestly, just do it. Like when I was I spent a lot of time before I got into comics wondering how you break into comics, and I would ask creators, "How do you break into it?" And it was almost like this secret of they wouldn't tell me, and then it was like, oh, when I finally figured it out, it was just, oh, you make your own comic, and that's how you get in the business. And then if you're good enough, you'll get invited to work, at a DC or at a Image, like I did with Rob Liefeld. Don't be afraid to take that gamble on yourself and make that book. I know it's hard for writers to find artists, but if you look, you'll find that like-minded person who wants to make your idea as much as you do. So just take that gamble.
And would you recommend that they do the indie book to work for one of the larger companies, or would you say at this point, just stay indie, do your own thing?
Just stay indie, do your own thing. When I got to DC Comics, I thought, oh, that was the pinnacle. Like that's what I had been working towards my entire career. But doing what I'm doing now, I realize this is the pinnacle. Like working for yourself, making your own ideas into a reality. That's where you want to be. It's the best feeling to make these books. Have people put up their money to make your dreams possible, and then even the fulfillment part. I love that. I love getting these books in from the printer, signing them all for the backers, packaging them up, making sure that they're being protected and sent with care. It's the best. It's fulfilling is fulfillment is very fulfilling. I don't know. That's just how I feel.
Definitely. Well, it's always nice, when you see someone get your book and they're really enjoying it, and it kind of makes it worth all the nonsense you got to go through to get it made.
Yeah, that's like the most exciting thing when the books start reaching people's mailboxes and they take that picture showing off because they're excited that they received the book, and then you start hearing the reviews, and it's a great feeling to know that people really love what you're doing.
Nice. All right. Well, everyone, Mark's books, we have USAssassin. Links are in the description for USAssassin, for the sign up page for Graveyard Shift, where to find him on Twitter, and where to find his own YouTube channel. I highly recommend going and watching the recent episode about the G.I. Joe art book. It's a fantastic book. So everyone, thanks for coming. Next week, next Tuesday, I have Jimmy Reyes. We're going to talk about Dragon Rage on Tuesday at 8. On Wednesday at 8, I have Victor Gorchev. He is writing a, dystopian present role-playing game based on the original Dungeons & Dragons rules. So check that out if you're tired of fantasy and you're looking for a little future prediction with election year coming up. And for me, later this month, Empire of the Undying Sun, my own 5e campaign guide. There will be a big announcement, and you'll get to finally find out about it. So stay tuned for that. So, Mark, thanks a lot for coming.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you back before too long.
Sounds good.
All right. Good night, everyone.